Companies are paying for value. And I think that's what we're seeing here is that these individuals make a difference. Secondly, job satisfaction. 82% of these individuals indicating a high level of job satisfaction. That's significant, especially when you're talking about recruitment and retention for organizations. We all love to keep our employees, especially our top performing employees.
Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the #1 voice of supply chain. Join us as we share critical news, key insights, and real supply chain leadership from across the globe, one conversation at a time.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Karin Bursa with you here on Supply Chain Now. Karin, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you today?
We're doing fantastic. So great to co-host another great session. And this is going to be a wonderful one, folks. Great show in the queue. We're going to be diving into a research report that offers actionable insights from more than 3,500 supply chain professionals. It is the 2025 ASCM Supply Chain Salary and Career Report. And I think our audience, Karin, is going to really appreciate the opportunity to put their finger on the pulse of supply chain compensation, benefits, and really the overall professional landscape. And to help us do all that, we've got none other than Abe Eshkenazi with the Association for Supply Chain Management, aka ASCM, joining us as we dive in. Big show, huh, Karin?
Absolutely. A really important topic. And I think it gives us some valuable data points that can back up what we're experiencing in the marketplace. Scott, I also think it reinforces one thing that I believe wholeheartedly, and that is it's a great time to be in supply chain.
That is Karin Bursa's official tagline. We're going to do T-shirts. We got billboards because it is a great time to be in global supply chain. And you know what? The data supports it. So stay tuned. Karin, are you ready to get started?
I'm ready. Let's go.
You are always ready, my friend. I want to welcome in our very special guest here today, Abe Eshkenazi, Chief Executive Officer with ASCM. Hey, Abe, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Scott. A pleasure to be with you and Karin today.
It is so great to have you. It's been a long time, but I really appreciate the investment that organizations put into this report. We're going to dive into all that and a whole bunch more. So Karin and Abe, we got a fun warm-up question before we get to all the data. How's that sound?
I'm good.
Sounds good.
So we're talking about compensation here today. And to my mind, it brought up my those early paychecks I got, right? As I bagged groceries and stocked shelves and worked a lot harder than what was in my paycheck. But I want to reminisce a bit. So Abe, we'll start with you. When you think about one of those early paychecks in your career, what is something you splurged on?
Going back to the day when working at 14 and 15 years old, serving hot dogs, I don't think I had a whole lot of design in terms of what I was going to do with that $10 paycheck. I think it was either a baseball mitt or spikes. I think those were one of my early purchases that I can remember actually having money to spend on.
These days, when you get a baseball, I don't know if y'all both have seen this, Abe and Karin, you buy a new glove, some of these sports stores will break it in for you, and they've got devices to do that. I used to put that under the tire of the car, amongst other things, Abe. So spikes and baseball mitts, those are great things. How about you, Karin?
Mine was a little different and not quite as practical as spikes or a new baseball glove. I think mine was a new pair of boots. And the irony of that is I grew up in South Florida where it was hot. You didn't have much opportunity to wear boots. But I think at age 14 or so, I saved up and I wanted that pair of very impractical boots. So that's where my love affair with shoes probably started at an early age.
Hey, we got to get you and my daughter Gracie together. She loves footwear, loves boots too. So who knows? But hey, we can't always be practical, can we, Karin and Abe? It's good to splurge sometimes. All right. So Abe, I want to do this. As we get into this report, let's start with some context. Tell us a little about the history of this research.
Yeah, we started 8 years ago, back in 2017. We did the first survey. And as you indicated, we have over 3,500 respondents now. And it's a cross-section of supply chain professionals. We have entry-level as well as senior executives, CSCOs, in the mix. What's changed? everything has changed over the past 8 years. I think that's the easy way to say it. But if we're talking about specifically on the compensation side, significant benefits and compensation for these individuals. When we first did the survey, median salary were $78,000 for those individuals. 8 years later, it's over $103,000 for those individuals, clearly recognizing, as Karen was pointing out, the value and the contribution that these individuals are making. But I think I'm going to go back to Karen's point about the role and the responsibility of these individuals and how much they've changed over the past truly 5 to 7 years. It used to be the only time that you heard from these individuals when there was a problem. Well, we have plenty of problems right now. And these individuals are on the front lines, dealing with sustainability, cybersecurity, navigating global supply chains. These are the true superheroes today.
Very helpful, all of that. But where you finished your response is my favorite part. And Karin, we're going to touch on this later in this review, because our fearless folks that makes the global supply chain happen every single day, they still are way too invisible. But we're making traction. Karin, what'd you hear there in terms of everything has changed since they published the first one of these reports?
I agree with Abe. And first of all, congratulations on the 8th edition of the report. Secondly, well done. It's very well documented, easy to consume. And I love the headline, Strong Salaries and Stable Careers in a Volatile World.
Yes. Well said, Karin. And there's lots of good news in this report and in industry out there, despite the challenges that we still have. I'm not sure what y'all had in the first year, Abe, but have 3,500 supply chain professionals around the world participate here in the 2025 edition. Any insights you can share on that army?
Yeah, quite a few. A couple that are consistent with what we saw in the prior year studies, but then there's a couple of interesting changes that we're seeing as well. First, who responded? Millennials make up the largest group, 56%, followed by Gen X, Zs, and then baby boomers. This really reflects the new demographic coming into the supply chain workforce today. It is much more diverse than we had probably 10 or 15 years ago. Secondly, when you take a look at the career satisfaction in terms of 2017 versus where we are today, it was 79% in 2017. It's 81%. Significant satisfaction and commitment from these individuals. They stay on the job. Also, what we saw is in 2017, 57 reported flexible work arrangements. It's now almost 80%. Again, reflecting the different environment that these individuals are working in. Let's get down into some of the specifics here. First, on the gender pay gap. In 2017, between men and women, it was 16%. Now we're seeing it's down to 9%. But here's an interesting fact, Scott. The gender pay gap, women actually out-earn men in the first 2 years of their performance of their work. Unfortunately, the pay gap inverts the longer these individuals stay in the workforce. So kudos to companies for encouraging and hiring women into the workforce. We now need to give them the opportunities to lead within the supply chain, not just include them in the hiring. Again, we're seeing significant changes in here. But I think on the leadership side, I'd like to see a little bit more commitment to the gender and the diversity of the individuals coming into the workforce. Scott, I think you probably, Karen and I could remember the majority of the individuals that came into supply chain came out of finance and engineering, predominantly white male industries back in the 80s and the 90s. Now you have significant academic programs and supply chain degrees. So a very diverse workforce coming in. So the capabilities and the competencies of the individuals are really interesting right now, because you have individuals that are digital natives coming into the workforce, but yet a lot of the leadership did not grow up with a digital environment. So there's opportunities for reverse mentoring for those individuals coming into the workforce. Opportunities are abundant within the supply chain. We used to think that the lack of a significant or one career path was a limitation. Now we see it as an advantage for these individuals coming into the workforce. There are a significant number of roles, as the study points out, in terms of how to enter the supply chain and where you can lead and where you can enhance not only your capabilities, but your organization's performance.
That is just your last response. Could be a webinar in and of itself. There are some big, important themes and opportunity to one of your themes there. It does abound. Karin, he really shared, I think, some interesting insights from the 3,500 folks that participated. What stood out to you?
One of the most interesting facts is the pay disparity, the gender pay disparity, and the fact that they've identified that early on. So from a recruiting stage, early in careers, they are attracting females, but at some point we're either losing them to other roles or the pay disparity flips. I'm so encouraged, number one, that the gap is getting smaller. But number two, we need to, with the flexibility that's available and all of the roles that are available today, we need to keep this talent in our resource pool and keep them incented and look for those opportunities to continue to advance them and look for equality from a compensation perspective. But the bottom line is the first thing that Abe mentioned is so exciting to me. The fact that the median compensation is over $100,000 a year. And that is, in the report, shared that that's 52% higher than the national average in peer engagement. So outside of supply chain. So that underscores all these conversations we've been having for years about it's a great place to invest. It's a great place to build your skills. This report backs that up just in a number of different ways.
Yes, facts, not feelings, right, Corinne? That's one of your other mantras.
Yes.
So you are taking all my talking points that stood out to me. But I want to pick up on something else Abe shared that I feel in my bones. He talked about a lot of folks that are just in the industry are digital natives, while a lot of folks in the C-suite, the different generation, we aren't born technologists. I'm telling you, my son, Ben, who's in 6th grade, he did some stuff on his phone the other day that you would have thought that a highly engineered tech firm would have done. And it just is so intuitive to him, right? Where I'm trying to still figure out how to navigate ChatGPT and, play tic-tac-toe on our computers. But it illustrates that gap. And it also illustrates lots and lots of opportunities. And of course, supply chain has to lean into and help bridge that gap. And that's how we're going to transform and make industry work so much better, not just for consumers, but equally as important for the employees that make up the global army of supply chain talent. So we got so much more to get into. So let's do this. Abe, there's so many takeaways here, but if you had to narrow it down to say 3 of your top key takeaways, what would that be?
I think the first is what Karin pointed out, competitive compensation. We are paying individuals for the contribution that they are making to their organizations. It's interesting when we publish this report and I go to a lot of the schools and I share with them the report and their eyes just widen when they see the compensation. I'm telling them, I said, companies pay for value. And they said, well, I'm going to go get my certification. I want to get into supply chain. And I'm saying, well, let me explain to you the process here is that you make your organization better, then you get the compensation. It isn't we're going to pay you just to come on. And so the contribution that these individuals are making is commensurate with their pay. Companies are paying for value. And I think that's what we're seeing here is that these individuals make a difference. Secondly, job satisfaction. 82% of these individuals indicating a high level of job satisfaction. That's significant, especially when you're talking about recruitment and retention for organizations. We all love to keep our employees, especially our top performing employees. We're seeing that supply chain professionals not only are committed to their organizations, but they're committed to their jobs. And that's an extraordinary high satisfaction level. Lastly, the value of our certifications. Professionals with our certifications enjoy a 20% median increase over non-certified individuals. That's significant. And I think this is one of the areas that organizations are paying for competency and capabilities. And over time, what we've seen is a lot of individuals coming into the workforce. Companies aren't really satisfied with what they're bringing in terms of their capabilities. They tend to be overweighted in technology and analytics and underweighted in real world experience and critical thinking. Those are dangerous combinations when you take a look at the digital transformation that's occurring in industry right now. You need to understand and critically evaluate the data before you accept the numbers or the data coming out of the systems. And this is where we're seeing a significant contribution from these individuals to their organizations. They're at the front line. They're sitting at every level of the organization. We've said this on a number of occasions. There's only 2 functions that have to know everything that goes on in the company. The first is finance. The second is supply chain. And we're seeing that these individuals are now being recognized for the value that they bring to their organization.
I like it, Abe, and I like that last point too. All right, of those three things, Karin, I want to pick up on that last one because we know that organizations they got to invest in their workforce, and lots of data is out there. At Gartner Supply Chain Symposium in Orlando just a couple weeks ago, I stole this nugget based on Gartner research. By 2028, 60% of supply chain digital adoption efforts will fail to deliver promised value due to insufficient investment in learning and development. It's a shame. We got to change that. But Karin, based on all three of Abe's key takeaways from the report there, what would you want to speak to here?
I love that we can quantify the added benefit of seeking certifications and training, because a lot of times the individuals do this on their own time because they believe it's valuable for their career. I think this research shows that, yes, in fact, it is. It's valuable, not just in delivering the role they're in today, but preparing them for the future or preparing them for expanded management roles. So I think that's critically important. The other thing I think is really important and no surprise based on all of our conversations over the years is technology. And technology is not just for technology's sake, it's to augment what our talented team is doing, right? Let's automate the routine activities so that they can engage and be creative problem solvers so that we can get the right products to the right customers at the right time at the best possible cost. That is where we're getting to today. And I think with the advancements in artificial intelligence and cloud computing, machine learning, et cetera, we need to embrace that. So if you're not tech savvy, spend time understanding those capabilities. If you are tech savvy, make sure you have context for those technical skills, that you understand what's happening in the supply chain. Get out there, get your hands dirty, meet with customers, suppliers, be in the production facility. You will bring so much more value to your business.
Yes, to all of that. And folks, if you're in college, we've got our Now Generation series we've been doing for a long time. If you're in college, you're undeclared, there's a tremendous opportunity here in global supply chain, as evidenced by all this data that we're sharing, and tremendous upside, right, to be advanced. And it's almost like the old books back in the 80s, Choose Your Own Adventure. Y'all remember those books where you could actively make the choices to develop, kind of build the future? There's a big element of that in global supply chain. Okay, one more thing. My key takeaway, one of them, Abe and Karin. Only 31% of respondents believe that their supply chain contributions are recognized by the average consumer. That tells me, Karin, we've got a lot more work to do. A lot more work. That's our mission here. And I know that, Abe, that's a big part of y'all's mission, ASCM. And hey, at least we've hit 31%. Maybe by next year we can double it. We'll see. Okay. So, Abe, let's do this. What was one of the most surprising elements to this year's edition of the report?
I think we have to put it in context, as Karin was pointing out, what are the lives that these individuals are leading right now, and what's influencing their career paths as well as their compensation. And despite the increasing global economic uncertainty, and I think we can identify from geopolitical wars, Ukraine, the Suez Canal, you name the Houthis, this is a very complex environment, and the disruptions are ever, layered today on top of COVID-19, which is really the spark. Supply chain industry continues to provide stable career paths for these individuals in high job satisfaction. If you're looking to elevate your career or advising others on what they can do, the industry needs qualified, capable individuals that want to make a difference. And that what stood out to me is that these individuals are committed to making a difference in their organizations, and they're committed to staying through it in spite of all the challenges that we've thrown on them, not only internally, but externally that they've had to deal with. These individuals are committed to their organizations. To me, I think that's the thread that keeps this industry going, are the individuals that power supply chains. I couldn't be more impressed and just really appreciative for every supply chain professional in terms of staying on the job through every one of the disruptions in serving our consumers and our patients' needs.
Karin, whether it's that or something else you saw, what was something that surprised you from the report?
Well, there was one call out in the report, Abe, about the culture gap and about the fact that there still is a lot of opportunity, I think, for us to appreciate internally the value proposition that the supply chain professionals are bringing. So there was a 62%, I believe is the number, positive company culture. And I think that in part, we've got to remember that supply chain professionals are by nature problem solvers. They look at complex situations and they're constantly thinking about, how do I do this more efficiently? How do I serve the customer? How do I keep everything moving? That wears on you a little bit. But I think sometimes they do it so well, it's not as appreciated in their companies as maybe it should be. So I think we still got lots of opportunity just to create an environment where folks are recognized for that day-to-day contribution, for keeping things moving, not just the big challenges, but when things are going good. It's because they're doing their job and they're showing up and they're looking at innovation on a regular basis.
Scott, you and I have talked about this for years, and that is having supply chain professionals getting a seat at the table. Being the strategic leaders that they are, we now have a seat at the table. We now need to use our voice at the table because we haven't trained these individuals to be in the C-suite. And so they're being forced into, a very visible role right now, as Karen was pointing out. That's not what they were trained for. They were trained for problem solving and efficiency and effectiveness. Now we're asking them to add on additional strategic responsibilities. And now we need to train them to use their voice at the table and to be the true leaders that they are.
Well said to you both. And I would just add one more thing. Two things, actually. Karin, we've talked about this. When supply chains are doing well, they're not found in the headlines. So they're not getting the recognition, right? But secondly, and there's always outliers in any study out there. But Abe, I saw on one of the pages, and folks, again, check it out, your own copy, in terms of hourly work weeks, I think. And 2% in the US and 2% in Europe had claimed more than 60-hour work weeks. Yeah. And again, there's outliers, but I also remember my time in manufacturing where we had some really long weeks based on the problems we were trying to solve and other projects and whatnot. And that speaks to me a lot of different things. But one of the things that speaks to me is that shows we still have a tremendous opportunity to make work easier and really lean into technology and what it can do to not only deliver more for our customers, which again is North Star of any supply chain out there, but make life easier and more successful for our precious team members, right? That's a drum we're going to keep beating until I sign off for the final time here, Abe and Karin. Okay, this data deserves like a 6-hour webinar. No one would enjoy that except me, maybe, but we'll save that for another time. Abe, how can folks connect with you and the ASCM organization?
Easy enough at ascm.org. You can get access to not only the content, and Scott, you were pointing out before about the students. Student membership is free, and it's also unfettered. We have firewalls for the students. They can get all the information and all the content that we have online without signing up or having to pay any fees. We know that it's often tough for students to balance their budgets. So here's an opportunity for them to get engaged and to start their path on their careers at the right, organization, and we welcome them. This is a great opportunity. We believe that's the future of supply chain. Are the students? We need to enable them. We need to provide them the opportunities.
It is on us as an industry and as practitioners, as leaders. And, Karin, you and I are very familiar with ASCM over the years. When I think of a free value proposition, the networking, the access to resources, being able to attend events and connect the dots, which is always challenging for any, especially new people to come in the industry. But Karin, what would you add to what Abe shared about plugging in with ASCM?
I think that the facts back up our feelings, and that is the facts are, as the research shows, that when you invest in education, in certification, in programs, you can expand your earning potential. So this particular year's survey says by 20%. That is substantial. How many of us wouldn't want to pursue a 20% increase in our compensation?
Well said. Half of that is a great year annual increase. And Karin, I think you snuck in your patented key takeaway in that response there. Am I right?
I did a little bit. It is a great time to be in supply chain, but I love it when the facts back up our feelings. So when our intuition tells us that it's a good time to be in supply chain, that's one thing. When we can look at numbers like this and it validates the need for education, this particular report also shows that it's a great place for folks coming out of high school with a high school diploma. It's a great place for them to build a career. So college is not necessarily a requirement, but leaning into honing your skills and education and understanding how your piece of the supply chain activity supports the whole business, critically important.
Big thanks, Abe Eshkenazi, CEO with the Association for Supply Chain Management. Abe, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure, Scott. Great.
And Karin Bursa, the one and only. It is a great time to be in global supply chain. As always, great to host these shows with you.
Thanks for the opportunity. And again, thanks to the ASCM team for putting this research together and sharing it with our audience today.
That's right. Use this, get that promotion, get that first job. This kind of gives you a path for advancing and making more money. Lots of opportunities. Folks, be sure to connect both with Abe and with Karin. And most importantly, big thanks to everyone here. Big thanks to Amanda and Joshua behind the scenes, helping make production happen. But thanks to our global audience for tuning in, sharing. But you got homework, folks. Take one thing that Abe or Karin shared, just one thing, and put it in action. Share it with your team, share it with your family, share it with your Aunt Edna up in Iowa. Whatever you do, make it actionable, right? Because deeds, not words. That's the name of the game. With all that said, on behalf of the Supply Chain Now team, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Join the Supply Chain Now community for more supply chain perspectives, news, and innovation. Check out supplychainnow.com, subscribe to Supply Chain Now on YouTube, and follow and listen to Supply Chain Now wherever you get your podcasts.